Carroll and her attorneys spoke to Rachel Maddow tonight, admitting she was nervous about physically facing Trump in court. But one moment, that changed.
Amazingly, I looked out, and he was nothing. He was nothing. He was a phantom. It was the people around him who were giving him power. He himself was nothing. It was an astonishing discovery for me. He's nothing. We don't need to be afraid of him. He can be knocked down.
As big as that $83 million verdict is, Donald Trump may have an even bigger penalty to soon deal with. We're expecting a decision in the New York civil fraud trial in the coming days. Now, the New York Attorney General is asking Trump and his companies be fined $370 million. And there are questions as to whether Trump's New York business empire may be dissolved. The Associated Press analyzed nearly 70 years of civil cases involving the law in question. That penalty has only been imposed a dozen times. One law professor called it a death penalty for business. This is just one of multiple court cases Trump is currently involved in, with several yet to begin. As the New York Times points out, we're seeing Trump use the defense stand as a campaign stage, showcasing his disdain for the legal system. And unlike these civil cases, Trump will be required to be in court during the 4 criminal trials he faces. With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel. Tolu Olorunnipa is here with me in studio, White House bureau chief at the Washington Post. Kathryn Christian, former assistant district attorney at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. She's now an MSNBC legal analyst. And former New York prosecutor and civil rights attorney Charles Coleman is also here, who's also an MSNBC legal analyst. He teamed up with correspondent Trymaine Lee for an MSNBC special called Black Men in America, The Road to 2024. You can catch it this Sunday starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on MSNBC. Charles, let's start with you. What was your reaction to all that we've heard from Carroll since the verdict?
Well, Simone, I think that what we've heard from Ms. Carroll is very important in terms of framing the narrative around this cloak of invincibility that Donald Trump has maintained thus far. And I know that people will say, well, he's been indicted, he's been impeached. Where are you coming from with respect to this cloak of invincibility argument? It's because he's never actually been held accountable. This is the first time that we've seen something through to the point of a verdict. We will see the second time when Judge Engoron enters into his order at the conclusion of the New York civil trial, which you just referenced. But this is the very first instance that we are actually seeing Donald Trump's armor finally pierced, despite having been under the fire multiple times. And I think her words are extremely important in terms of framing that narrative, because you're not talking about someone who has a huge amount of political capital or a big political machine behind her. You're talking about an everyday person who was courageous enough to use the legal system to enforce her rights and stand up to the behemoth that Donald Trump has been. And look what happened. David beat Goliath.
You know, E. Jean Carroll said that this is a fight for all women around the country, really alluding to a lot of what Charles just said. I want to play this for you all. Watch this.
This is a man who stacked the Supreme Court, took away women's rights over their own bodies. We would like to be a part of turning our eyes to the future and taking back our rights.
Kathryn, what do you think of how E. Jean Carroll has handled herself through all of this? We just saw a woman who is 80 years old beat Donald Trump.
She's handled it with a lot of grace and composure. And let's, of course, give a lot of credit to her very exceptional attorneys, Roberta Kaplan and Ms. Crowley. So two different, as Charles said, you know, she beat Donald Trump. Two different juries. Remember, she had a trial last year for the sexual assault. He was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation, and she was awarded $5 million there. And then a jury trial last week, and she was awarded $83.3 million for a total for $88 million. So a jury of her peers, of Donald Trump's peers. This was also, by the way, not a Manhattan jury. This was the Southern District of New York, which encompasses counties outside of Manhattan, Bronx and counties upstate New York. So as she said earlier, he was sort of the emperor of no clothes. She was afraid until he was sitting in the courtroom. And his behavior in the courtroom certainly did not please the jurors on this case. And we'll look forward to the future when he has 4 criminal trials upcoming, and they will all be jury trials. And let's see how he acts in those trials.
And I will note the majority of the jurors in this case were men. Charles,
Yes.
let's talk about this New York civil fraud trial and that possible penalty that would dissolve Donald Trump's New York businesses. This is incredibly rare, as the reporting states. This could devastate Donald Trump's, literally go to the heart of, what he says. He says he's a wealthy man, he's a good businessman. How likely do you think it is that the judge goes that far?
I don't think it's that likely, Simone. I think that when you're talking about the death penalty for a corporation, a judge has to take into account a number of different things. Typically, when we have seen in the dozen cases that the death penalty has been given to a New York-based business, you're talking about situations where there were a long list of victims and people who have been defrauded. In this case, one of the tenets of Donald Trump's defense strategy has been, look, the banks were happy. This was no issue where you had a bunch of victims, and that's going to be a key element. And quite frankly, it should be in terms of Judge Engoron making his decision. And here's why. One of the things that Judge Engoron has to be keenly aware of is giving the death penalty in a case like this to Donald Trump, regardless of how you may feel about him or how much you may like him, does set a precedent that makes it easier for prosecutors to actually have that penalty imposed upon businesses. And then it becomes a snowball effect where additional businesses may decide, I don't want to do business in New York because of the potential liability and the risk, not necessarily wanting to do anything fraudulent, but understanding that it would be easier here for prosecutors to get the death penalty against a business. And so I don't suspect that Engoron is going to go that far, but I do fully expect and anticipate that the financial penalties that he levies are going to be very, very heavy.